This is a disclaimer. This podcast features 4 professional idiots who share their insights and anecdotes. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. This podcast represents the opinions of the guests and should not be taken as medical, legal, or professional advice.
Welcome, everyone, to Overqualified Idiots, the show where we talk about pretty much whatever we want to in our respective fields, in our respective line of work, basically where we're highly educated, highly trained, or so people like to think. And we tell, interesting stories, anecdotes related to whatever we want to talk about that day. I am Dan Casey, MD. I am accompanied by Ramon Chavez, PharmD.
Hello.
Patrick Casey, Esquire.
Yes, sir.
And Ben Mishler, Bachelors of Science. Ben Mishler, the BSer.
Hi.
So today's episode's theme is going to be things I learned way too late. And I figured this is a good pilot episode topic because it kind of illustrates the whole point of this podcast, which is, we're really smart, allegedly, and really well trained and highly educated in one thing, but we're still also regular dumb guys. In the future, there will probably be reoccurring bits like Idiot's Take, where someone will present an interesting article or modern topic, and people will give their, field's perspective on it or their kind of hot take on what exactly is going on. But for now, we'll just start with intros because, this is the pilot episode. I'm Dan Casey. I am a primary care sports medicine specialist, so I'm kind of the jock of doctors as far as doctors go. Yeah, I know a lot about... I'm a jock.
Dumb jock of doctors.
Yeah, born and raised in Arizona. The state won't let me leave. And I practice here. Ramon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Ramon. I'm a community pharmacist. I work for one of the big chains, and I appreciate the people that come in. I still kind of like the work I do, but I've grown up in Arizona and Phoenix, and I live here with my wife and family, and it's kind of my life, and it's good.
I should mention I have a wife and a child.
But I'm a community pharmacist. I work in retail. I'm educated, but I still run a drive-through, so I try not to get a big head about it.
I still push doors that say pull. It's fine.
Yeah.
Ben.
So I feel like the most underqualified one here. I have a.
It's called Overqualified. You're fine.
I have a bachelor's in aerospace engineering, specifically on the space side of things. So I'm a rocket scientist, not currently in the industry, but also very much keep up with it. Very into the space stuff.
All right, Patrick Casey. My claim to fame, of course, is being Daniel's older brother. The oldest of 3 brothers, born in upstate New York, grew up in Arizona. College in Wisconsin, law school in California. I live in southern Minnesota. I have 2 children. One is about to go into college. The other is 13 and about to be in high school. Married for the second time. I practice criminal defense and family law. So I'm the lawyer that you don't ever want to have to talk to. Oh, God.
I think the fun part of Patrick and my fields is no one's happy to see us. No one's seeing us on a good day. It just doesn't have... I was like, it's nice to meet you. It's a pleasure. How are you doing? They're like, I'm seeing you, so not great. But, so today's episode is things I learned way too late. There's the whole subreddit culture of, I was today years old when I learned that you should use the sharp end of a knife to cut things. I don't know. That's not a good example. But basically, I'll kind of start us off. I have 2 stories. One that's related to me and not related to my work. And one that wasn't me at my work. The first one's kind of embarrassing because this happened 2 months ago, so I really don't have an excuse. It was 12 years of education under my belt, and it never occurred to me that this was a problem. So microwave, or rather, frozen pizzas. Many of them, if they don't come in a box, they come on top of a cardboard, basically plate, for lack of a better word. I didn't know that you took, I didn't know the cardboard's purpose. I thought it was a little tray it came with. So normally they're meant to stop people from crushing them when they're stored or transported to the grocery store. I thought you could just put it in the oven.
Structural integrity.
Not a concept I'm familiar with.
How did you not start your house on fire at
Oh
least once?
my God. Nicole looked at me. Nicole's my wife. You looked at me like I was insane.
You are.
I was, yeah. But basically, I've been cooking my oven-based pizzas for years. And I've never once had a house fire by some higher powers intervention, I'm assuming.
Either that or all the buildings I lived in college were just full of asbestos. Just chock full.
Just fire
I
retardant.
remember doing that by accident one time. Like, and in the middle of it, the thing caught on fire. That's why I'm just so amazed.
I don't
You did it
know.
on purpose repeatedly.
Dozens.
Over and over again.
Dozens
Yeah.
of times. Some higher power intervened. I like to think Buddha. I just picture that scene from Family Guy where I don't remember the context, but Peter Griffin is like, "Oh, thanks, Jesus," and it flashes to Jesus in heaven, and he's like, "Oh no, it wasn't," and then a hand's on his shoulder, and it's like Shiva, and he's like, "No, I'm used to it." So that's my it's not work related, but it gives you some insight into me as a person. But my not me, but work-related story was actually when I was an intern in residency. So I did residency in family medicine, and the general sort of flow of medical training that I don't know if everybody is familiar with. Most people kind of just like, oh, you're a doctor. You went to med school, and now you're a doctor. Well, med school's 4 years, and there's really only like a year and a half of real clinical training, maybe 2 years. I think they're trying to expand on that in the general model. But then you have residency, where you specialize. Yes, you're an MD, but you're an MD that knows enough just enough to kill someone. And residency training, you do specialty training. So, for example, I did family medicine, so I was like geared towards being a primary care doctor. So my first year, I was like 6 months into it, so I kind of start to know what the heck I'm doing with my life. And I get this nice young couple, probably early 20s, I'm guessing 22 or 23. And they're having fertility issues, which for 22 and 23-year-olds is not a normal thing. They crank out babies without issue all the time. And basically, you get through the conversation, she stopped her birth control, good on them. That is a good first step. And it becomes a very personal discussion. Basically, I asked them, okay, so kind of take me through what's your routine, how do you guys do it? How do you do the deed? And, well, the girl says like, okay, well, we get undressed. I'm like, all right, good start. Then, we put on a condom. I had to pump the brakes. Say that again?
Oh, don't worry, we poke holes in it.
No, that was the thing. But, 22, 23, they're like, oh yeah, we use a condom. We don't want to spread disease or anything along those.
That's good of them.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, but do either of you have a sexually transmitted infection? And then they look at me like I'm the idiot, all offended, like, no, of course we don't. I'm like, oh, what? Okay, so...
because they practice safe sex every time, Dan.
Every time. Hey, man, I guess the sex education's doing something right.
There you go.
Did you get that far in the conversation? Like,
yeah,
just
so...
having sex with each other?
Yeah, you studied for this test. You're getting ahead of me. I asked them...
No, but I know I'm getting ahead of you, but I just want to make sure that we're clear here.
Yeah, that was the next...
want to stop the spread of disease, all for it. And in fact, these things should be distributed in the nursing home, not between 20 and 20-somethings.
Very, very good point.
So they were monogamous.
Yes, and they were pretty offended with the first question if they had a sexually transmitted disease, and then they were even more offended at that question. So at this point, they want to leave the room. They don't want to talk to me anymore. So I have to have this talk of with adults, not children.
The birds and the bees.
Of okay, well, condoms don't just stop disease, they stop babies too. So go ahead, stop using a condom, come back in 3 months. If you're not pregnant, we'll do a workup. Sure enough, 2 months later, she's pregnant. So that was one of those, okay, never assume anything. Never assume people's knowledge. I had that fairly early on in training, and I didn't realize it was going to be so blatant. So does anybody else have a story?
Yeah, mine is not... This is Ramon. Mine is not work-related. It is personal. There's a chain of food places here called Salad & Go, which Salad & Go, if you're listening and want to sponsor us, please give us lots of free salads. It's too soon for sponsors? Who knows?
We'll see how the first episode does.
But
to the moon.
But essentially the business model of this place is you go through the drive-thru, they give you a salad, and you go. And the
good
salad...
Name.
Yeah, it's a good name, right? Makes sense. I can understand it.
Can't possibly confuse this.
So your salad comes in a to-go container, like any other salad place would or to-go food item would. But the thing that I always had trouble with for, every time I've been eating there is the salad isn't mixed up enough when you pour the dressing on. So what I thought in my head that was genius was I put the salad on the dressing, closed up the food capsule, and then I shook it up like crazy to get everything uniform and everything throughout the salad. And I thought I had discovered this new science. And so I told myself, I'm going to go talk to the next time I go through the drive-thru and tell the person who works there that this is a new way. You should tell all your customers how to evenly mix up their salads. I ran this by my wife first, and I said, look at this. 'Cause we had Salad and Go about a week ago, and I told her, check this out. Okay, you got your salad, right? Put the dressing on, close it up, shake it up and down. Look at this. Now the salad is nice and uniform, and it's ready to go. My wife turns to me and says, look at the lid. And so I grab the lid, and those instructions that exact thing is printed on the lid. So my wife turns to me and says, you are a moron. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
It's funny, too, because when you look at the actual container, like, it's not a lid in that it's just a flat plastic cover. It's the same shape and size as the food container. So it's exactly designed for that purpose.
So apparently everyone's been doing that. I just discovered that, and I thought I was a gosh darn genius. As you can see, I fit perfectly for this podcast. I'm in the right place.
This is exactly what I wanted. These are the stories that I want. They don't always have to be work-related, which is the fun part. But I hope they're usually not work-related. Because if it's work-related or like in your training, then it's like, oh shoot, I could hurt someone. Or something like that.
I was in training, and then I learned how a rocket worked.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's why they have continuing ed for us, because there's plenty of times where I go to a seminar, they're doing like a review of something. I mean, I find out I've forgotten more things than I learned. I mean, because you just forget some concept. It's like, oh yeah, that's a thing. I forgot about that being a thing, because it hasn't come up in years. But you're there, and it's a thing. Like, okay. And then, of course, inevitably, like a week later, the thing comes up, and you're like, well, damn good thing I go to these CLEs. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember.
Oh, so they're called CLEs for you.
Yeah, continuing legal education.
Yeah, that obviously makes sense. We have CMEs. So
is that by chance continuing medical education?
Smart man. Yeah, you studied for this test,
amazing.
too.
Wow, you just learned something new today right now, Dan. Put it on the list.
I mean,
there you go.
It made sense. I just didn't think about what the adjective or the adverb would be. But anyways. So CMEs for us, in medicine, in order to be board certified, you recertify every 10 years in your field. By that time, you're supposed to have completed a certain number of like CME credits. So people always ask me, it's like, wait, you're done being a doctor. Why are you still going to conferences? There's new stuff in medicine. Like, there is literally, like, things that I learned that was gospel truth in med school that was outdated a year later. That was just like, okay, we don't do that anymore. We kill more people than help. Or something. That's drastic. That's dramatic. But, point being, medicine's evolving. We're practicing. Everything is changing, so you want to stay on the up and up. With law, Patrick, how often do you guys recertify, and do you have those same credits? I just don't know.
Every 3 years, we have to have allotted a certain number of credits, so there's no recertification process. It's just remembering to push the right buttons to send it to the people that need the information that you've got your credit hours in. I typically stick to, criminal 2 CLEs every year, which is the family law CLE. It's a two-dayer up in the cities, which they haven't held in person for
2 years
for obvious reasons. Yeah. And then what they call the Criminal Justice Institute, and that one's a little bit better, I think, just because they do like a bunch of different breakout sessions, and you can pick and choose. Well, if you're really cheater, you can attend like 3 of them. So you start one late, so it's already, and you just like burn through the breaks. And no, I got it so I could get more information in the same amount of time. That doesn't mean I get any more credits. It just means I get more information for the same time I would be sitting. But anyways, yeah, that's what we do. That's what I do, anyways. Every 3 years, you got to submit so many credits, and I always have way more credits than I need. I'm never that person scrambling around going, oh heck, I gotta enter this in June and be done with it. It's just a matter of remembering to actually, put the information in the app and send it along.
Well, I was going to say, we have a similar process in medicine where I feel like I'm probably more of the, creature of necessity scrambling at the end to get enough. But now that I actually consistently go to conferences, or in this case, attend virtual ones, which, by the way, this year, they're going to be in person. I don't know how people feel about that, but the AMSSM, which is the American Medical Society of Sports Medicine, is having their first sports medicine conference in person since, 2019. Ramon.
Now that we put everybody to sleep.
Yeah. Ramon, what is, just to kind of spitball off this a little longer, what is the certification or recertification for, community pharmacists?
Yeah, so we have a pharmacist license that every 2 years you just submit 30 units of just CE. It's just continuing education. There's no continuing. It's not CPE. It's just CE. You
guys don't need the definer.
Like I said,
you just put pills in bottles and count by five.
Count by five. I still run a drive-through. We don't get a big head about it. Yeah, we intervene when it's necessary, when we see an obvious drug interaction, so we don't kill you. But it's you just submit your CE, and then occasionally the board will audit you, and then you just have to go, here's all the list of the CE I did.
Wait a minute, you did a credit in underwater basket weaving? Yes.
Yes.
You weren't specific?
It was some sort of continuing education.
You didn't say for what?
Exactly.
I do not have to do continuing education.
That's nice.
Nice.
You guys don't have recertification exams you have to take?
No, God no.
Oh, well, what? All right.
Absolutely not.
It makes sense for doctors, I guess. But, it baffles me because you have the same level of education and training I do, Ramon, and you can kill just as many people as I can.
Yeah, I suppose.
If you try hard enough, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, so Ramon and I have gone. Patrick, do you have any things I learned way too late stories?
So, a couple weeks ago, pipe burst in my house. I just happened to be sitting in the room. The pipe burst.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm playing Fortnite. Yes, I do that. With my brother Daniel. That's hit the doctor. Yeah, he and I are playing Fortnite. And we're in the middle of a round, and I hear, water sound. I think somebody's upstairs taking a shower. I don't think really anything of it. And as we keep playing, I realize it's not a shower because the ceiling is starting to bow in, and I'm like, I just tell Dan, I gotta go.
Oh, that's what that was. I never heard any resolution.
You never put the connection. Yeah, you never put it together. So anyways, water starts dripping down from my ceiling, and there's a big bubble starting to form there, and I'm like, oh my God. So I run up to the stairs to Tara and say, there's water. There's water. I'm just freaking out. And she comes down, and we go to the basement together, and the water's not just, where apparently the pipe burst, but it's now going down the wall, the abutting wall down to the basement, and it's like a deluge, like it's pouring rain in my basement. So we go in to try to find where the water shutoff is, and neither of us have the foggiest clue where the water shutoff is. Like, we think it's in the basement, but is it someplace else in the house?
So you're just
we both have no idea. We're both 43 years old adults. We've owned multiple houses. I've owned 3. She's owned, this would be her 3rd as well. So, yeah. So, you'd think at that point in your life, regardless of how much information you have in your head, you'd know where your water shutoff valve would be, right? Hell no. I have no idea. So I tell her, I said, you call one of our friends, because he's the kind of person who knows everything. Like, you ask him and he knows it. And he goes, this is where it should be. And we go to the place that he says it should be, and it's not there. And so we shut off water above where the pipe burst. So, water, gravity, logic. And it does. It works. It works. Till we get somebody in that can actually, locate said spot. But I was 43 years old when I finally learned where my water shutoff valve was in my home. Because other than that experience, I'd have no idea. No clue.
Was it in a logical spot?
It was behind the washer. It was where water's coming in from outside, certainly, but it wasn't where it should be, apparently, by the water heater, the furnace. Wow. It should have been on that wall, and instead it was on a wall that was we got the water stopped. Everything's now fixed. I've got the insurance claim done. And so when things go bad in your house, and thankfully we're home. I was supposed to be at work, catching up on some things after vacation. We were going to go out shopping, and instead we had lazy morning kind of thing, and thank God we did. Otherwise, it'd be like replacing floors. It would be replacing, personal property. God forbid my Xbox Series S.
No!
or my 75-inch TV, but thankfully it wasn't that bad. I go to see Elise and I go, oh, I forgot that I knew that. But when it comes to, like, daily life, right? So when you do the type of job that I do, you obsess about things quite a bit. And part of that is you have a reputation, integrity. Everybody knows everybody. I mean, I'm in southern Minnesota. Everybody knows everybody in the legal community, right? So you want to be on good terms with as many lawyers as you possibly can, even if you are in court against them. But there's one thing that I've learned, and I've been imparting this wisdom to other human beings whenever I possibly can, including my son. You cannot let people live in your head rent-free. You just can't do it. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a client, customer, even, your significant other, your kids, whomever it is that's in your head and making you upset. They can't live there rent-free because you're letting them live there. They're not thinking about you. They don't care about you in that moment. They're not thinking about that interaction that you're obsessing over. It's only you. And so
Exactly.
that's the way I've framed it is do not let people live rent-free in your head. And that's made me a happier person because as soon as I start obsessing about that thing, that as I'm sitting on my couch, I can't do anything about whatsoever. So why am I wasting my free time obsessing about somebody else's problem or issue or whatever, when I could just be sitting here enjoying my life and enjoying the things that are happening, being more present. I guess I just learned that this last year. I don't know if I was 42 or I was 43 when that finally, stop letting people live rent-free in your head. They don't care about you. They're not thinking about you. Thinking about this. So don't let people live rent-free in your head.
We should stop playing Skull with Glenn then.
Oh God, yeah. For those who don't know,
I
Skull
don't know
is
what that means.
it's like a
Imagine
betting.
poker.
Yeah.
Imagine just simplified poker. It's down to the bare bones of it's a lying game. And we have a friend who we were playing it with, and there were 5 of us playing, and we knew what he was going to do. We knew what he was going to do. And he did it anyways.
And we let
And
him.
we kept losing.
Yeah. And it's good. I feel like that's really sound advice because I can't tell you how many interactions I have with patients. I think everybody who's worked in customer service, which ultimately healthcare to some degree is. Anybody who's worked in a service job just knows that awful person who comes in and ruins your day. And sometimes there's multiple of those people. Sometimes they come in waves. And I can't.
Ruin your day.
Yeah.
You let
I
them.
know. And
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
have control over that.
Yeah, I think it's sound advice, and I think it's things people need to hear and realize that ultimately, we talk about internal versus external locus of control in medicine. It's like, okay, did this person do this to you, or are you letting it affect you? So that being said, going back to your story, Pat, I love picturing you running around panicking, looking for some magical valve to turn off. Is it over here?
It exists, and it's raining in my basement.
'Cause you don't really panic. You're a calm.
No,
in case anyone can't tell by the monotone voice, he's a very even keel person. It's just he's got the whole resting murder face, and in court, I bet you can stare daggers. But picturing you losing it and running around panicking is something I wish I could have paid. Because on my end of things, to tell that side of my story, I just hear oh, I gotta go. Oh, shh. And then audio just cuts.
That's what you didn't know on your end. Because even though I am panicking internally, externally, I appear like I'm calm, cool, and collected. In that instance, no chance. It's outside of my comfort zone completely. I never learned, nobody taught me how to work with my hands or fix things or how things worked like that mechanically when I was growing up, and so it never interested me. And so I'd always let people who are smarter in those things, deal with those issues.
For sure.
But yeah, that I was losing my shit right there. Yeah, for sure. I mean, because it's raining in my living room, and all I wanted to do was kill people on a video game.
Yeah, we lost that round. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, more. Yeah,
yeah, the whole calm on the surface, but like panicking underneath too is something I can relate to in medicine. I'm very good at my job. I wasn't always. There were many procedures where, in medicine, it's the see one, do one, teach one. So you see something done, then you do it. It's just expected. Doesn't matter if it's like, a little vaccine or doing a central line into somebody's like major blood vessel under an ultrasound. Like you see it, you do it, and then allegedly you can teach it, which I don't think is completely true. But that approach to medicine, there are many procedures where I was like, oh God, okay, just look calm, don't let them sense your panic. And on the surface, I look calm and ready, but not so much underneath. Oh my goodness, I have such a good poker face at my work now that when things are going wrong, or even just situations where people are being awful to me, I'm able to keep it together just fine. Well, I had many attending physicians tell me, it's like, oh, you handled that situation really well. You looked like you kept it together. I'm like, great, because I was losing my mind.
My mind, everything is on fire, and the world is coming to an end. But yeah, we did a good job here.
If they looked at how my pupils dilated, you wouldn't have said that.
Zoom in on Dan's head, and it's the dog in the room on fire that says everything is fine.
It's fine. This is fine.
Yep. No, just to cap off that one piece, just we live in a society of victimization, and the moment you realize that things don't happen to you, you let them happen to you in most circumstances. You make choices to let things into your mind that aren't there, or read things in a way when most days people aren't concerned about you, or they're not upset with you, they're upset with their situation, and you make it about yourself. And usually 99.9% of life has nothing to do with you whatsoever. I mean, I just don't think we realize that. I think we're that self-absorbed or
I think it's just main character syndrome. We're all the protagonists of the universe, and our story is the important one, and everyone else is an NPC or background character there to facilitate. I think we all feel that way to varying levels and varying degrees. I mean, we're highly educated, highly trained people, allegedly, and I feel like half the time I don't have have the confidence I exude, or always, there's always that little bit of doubt.
Imposter syndrome.
And I've gotten better. After however many years in practice now, I feel like that feeling gets better, but in my personal life, in my interpersonal life, in my relationships, sometimes that still creeps in, and you have to knock it down in terms of like, okay, I'm not that important. I am, one of 7 billion specks of dust, and I really shouldn't let this bother me. I shouldn't be upset about X, Y, Z, because they're probably, like you said, they're probably not even thinking about it. That person who came in and was awful towards me and ruined my day, they didn't ruin my day. I did, because I let it bother me. Whereas they're probably at home being awful to someone else or somewhere in, the community. So if that's how they feel it's appropriate to treat, professionals or people that are doing them a service, then that's the way it is. And you can't control that. You can control how you react to it. Anyway, soapbox over. Ben, tell us more funny stories.
This one, I was like, oh, this is so minor, and then I remembered Ramon's story about the salad, and I'm like, no, this actually is a public service announcement almost at this point. So
when you think of like us being, I think those with PhDs at level of education represent something like 0.1% of the population of the planet. And then Ramon doesn't know that, and I apparently don't know to take cardboard out of an oven. You're probably talking to a larger demographic than you realize.
Yeah, I will just, very quick aside, the day I met Dan, meeting at a bar for my birthday one year, and a friend gets a text from Dan going, I'll be a minute, I locked my keys in my truck.
I like to make a first impression, what can I say?
And that's just basically describes Dan. He's a doctor, but don't worry, he locked his keys in his truck.
I am super, and you know what's funny? To this day, that is the only time I have ever done that.
Of course it is.
It's just like that, set that impression in stone, but it's still not inaccurate. I feel like I'm not I'm very focused on things that are important to me. But when people talk about like, oh, you zoned out, like, no. A pretty focused person when I need to be. People talk about like, oh, I zoned out and I wasn't paying attention. I was like, no. Being zoned out is my default. I zone back in. I am oblivious and in my own head, just kind of enjoying the sunshine 95% of the time. Unless I'm at work, unless I'm doing something that needs.
Face. I know that face.
Is it
like
on your
face?
Is it on your son?
Yeah, he's not. The lights are on, but nobody's home.
Yeah.
Face. Yeah. It's funny. I can see it right now. Like the zoned out Dan. It's like, Dan, are you still here? Look at my hand. Yeah. Anyways.
Nicole will be talking and be like, I said your name like 3 times. Like, oh, sorry, what? I wasn't ignoring you. I just was 1,000 miles away. Anyways, Ben, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
But, so, there's some places, you go to a bar and there's sports on and, but, you really wish they would stop playing music and play volume on sports. Yeah, turns out the volume, not the picture, is what requires the license for bars.
What?
Yeah. So, if places like Buffalo Wild Wings that have, the volume on for, the big sports games or the big pay-per-view fights, they have to pay these gigantic license fees to have the volume turned on.
Weird.
So any bar you've been to that's got, 7 different sports on but no volume for any of them, it's because they just have the TV. They don't have a licensing fee for it.
That makes so much sense, because I didn't realize, I didn't think about that as being, because it makes so much sense when you go in, there's 22,000 TVs on, and they're just playing some, I don't know, depending on where you go, pop music or top 40, what have you. And
Coldplay.
You're still so bitter about that one song.
Oh, I hate all of their songs.
You're like, I could have wrote that. I could have written that.
But you know what? I didn't.
You didn't. Anyways, Coldplay did. That's why they make the money. I didn't. Yeah, that's so wild. And licensing, and this will probably be like an episode in and of itself, and especially with Patrick weighing in on the legal implications. I'd love to hear the legal take on copyright and licensing and all that sort of thing, because obviously I didn't know that. I'm sure lots of people didn't.
Right.
What a weird concept that you can't play. The second somebody hits the volume up button, they're breaking. You owe someone money. Don't touch that mute button. Don't touch it. It's I don't know how many hundred. I don't know what the cost of being able to present it would be.
Oh, it's a lot.
I believe it.
So
It's hundreds or thousands.
I don't know this for sure, but it's something like they license you based on the cost of it per person in your bar being full.
Oh, so it's based off your building's capacity.
Yes, it is stupid.
Okay.
That being said,
that's a cool story. That's not that exciting or embarrassing.
I know, but also public service announcement.
Yeah, because the water main thing, I have not owned a home. I have never been a homeowner. I don't know where the water shut off valve.
But if that happened right here, right now,
oh God,
we would just be swimming.
Yeah, and because I know there's 2 water mains. There's an inside shutoff valve and outside shutoff valve. One that's usually outside by your water meter. I have no idea where the inside one is in our house. I did know about the salad part. I feel like I've eaten a salad. Maybe it's just a comment on the fact that you don't eat salads very often.
That could also be the case, yeah.
And can I just gripe for a minute? I love Salad and Go. They get me my food in 30 seconds.
Salad and Go, we're looking for sponsors. Please give us free salads.
Salad and Go, we'd be big fans. You'd be big fans of us, and we can sponsor. Yeah, anyways. The lines to Salad and Go. Oh, I don't know if it happens to you guys. There's always every lunch break, because I have 30 minutes for my lunch break. I see patients. Usually it ends up taking well into my one quote-unquote hour-long lunch break to see all of them based off the volume I see. But the Salad and Go lunch times, they're 20 cars long. Even if you're seeing a car a minute, that's 20 minutes to get your salad.
Yep.
So anyways, that's my one gripe about Salad and Go. I absolutely
You're too popular, Salad and Go.
Will you stop it or build more? Or build more locations right near my work?
Your product is too high quality at an affordable price. Salad and Go.
That's my gripe. It's not even a real gripe. Yeah, I don't really have any stories of work related. I learned this way too late. That would be relatable or be interesting. Yeah. It's a lot of just oh shoot, I probably should have known that going into this patient encounter instead of finding out on the tail end.
There could be some legal ramifications, right, Patrick?
Probably shouldn't talk about mistakes or things I didn't know in the medical practice. Well, that's what training's for, and I feel like doctors, and mind you, I'm speaking for myself. I'm the jock doctor, who. It's funny, Pat, you brought up how much you forgot, when you go to a conference. There is so much like family medicine, primary care chops that I am losing day by day. My wife Nicole is a resident in family medicine, and she's come home several times talking about an interesting case or an interesting patient. I'm like, oh, I forgot that was a thing. Oh, I should know that. I mean, 95% of my patients are just sports medicine, so I'm just working on bones all day, and she'll come home with something like, oh shoot, I learned that in med school. How did I forget that?
Because you haven't used it since med school.
I haven't used it for 2 years. As
a pharmacist, the same thing happens in retail. You see the same conditions over and over again, just the outpatient stuff. And as soon as you start chatting with a friend from school that's inpatient, you go, oh yeah, that's right, we learned about that. Oh God. It's crazy. Just, you use it, you lose it.
Yeah, Pat, is there anything, at least in your reoccurring, because I don't know anything about law or what cases and court dates look like. Are there things that you learn that go fast that you're like, oh shoot, I need to relearn this again?
The law changes every year, so we have to get these updates. Trying to keep track of the updates and the changes in the law are troubling by themselves, but then to try to see how the legislature has screwed up something that was previously not that way, and how that's going to adversely impact my clients is kind of like looking at a crystal ball. I always put it like it depends on what the judge ate for breakfast or what the law says. It's just there's so much more of a human component in the day-to-day decision-making process. You have to know the people that are making the decisions very well, and if you don't, then that can be a problem for you. But as far as I don't know where it's actually like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that in the middle of a court hearing. I do get plenty of, I have 3 associates and a partner, and I'll get questions all the time about their practice areas, and some of it I don't know at all, and I'll just give my, factual, practical, pragmatic perspective. But in the other situations where it's my practice area and they just ask me a law school exam question, a written fact pattern somebody made up to try to get you to try to be a pain in the butt. Well, real world stuff happens like that and comes in. And sometimes I've just said, here's what I think the answer is. Here's the best way we should handle it, which isn't necessarily the answer. But I don't know if I'm right or wrong because of the interactions, complexities of, sometimes when you're talking about family law, federal law comes into play when it comes to custody and child support. So interactions between different areas of the law. I work for a small town as a city attorney, and they ask some really challenging questions, and then at other times they ask some really we're gonna this is what you're gonna spend money on to get me to answer a question. Are you serious? Best example I can come up with off the top of my head is there's a statute that says cop cars can only be a certain color.
Okay.
And one of the and they just got a new police car and they put a wrap on it, and it doesn't look exactly like a certain color.
Oh, so it's not readily identifiable.
I had to have the chief of police. They said, well, it looks kind of gray. It doesn't look black, and gray is not a color that they can be.
It's so more of an onyx.
It's an onyx.
I know. Right? Yeah. Oh no, it's that. Yeah.
It needs to be a midnight black.
So I send a text message to the chief of police, and I go, send me a picture of the squad car, because I'm talking to 2 other lawyers and a paralegal about this question, because I'm sitting here going, what? Why are we doing? What are we doing? Well, I don't know what the car looks like, so how am I gonna answer this question? He sends it to me, and my response, my legal advice at that point is, it's fucking fine. My response, it's fucking. And then so we get on with the city administrator during this conference after we've answered all of the questions that they have, at least the way we think would be the best way to approach all of them. And we get to the cop car, and I tell her, here's my legal advice. It's fucking fine. Just tell the city administrators. Just it's fine. They don't need to worry about the not quite 100% black cop car. I mean, why are we doing this?
Does the city not have bigger problems to address that day? I mean, I get you're in southern Minnesota. You don't exactly have a metropolitan police force to deal with. And
it's a small town.
But is that something that people outside of the city, even like the city legislator, even know about? Like, could somebody who lives in that small town be like, well, I saw this cop car and it pulled me over, but it wasn't exactly black, so I didn't know it was a cop car.
It's not a clown car or a fire truck.
It was Obsidian. It wasn't midnight black, so I knew it couldn't be. What does it matter?
I mean, what does it really matter when you could have an unmarked vehicle?
Right. Yeah. Why is that?
I have no. I mean, it's part of a state statute.
Pull the lights off of it.
That's true.
Make it unmarked.
Yeah, I know exactly. Certain criminal charges, though, someone to be in a fully marked squad car would be identifiable. Like, say somebody gets pulled over and they run away. That potentially, possibly, perhaps could be well, it wasn't black. Well, no. It's a fully marked squad car. It's got the spinning lights and it's got the insignias for the jurisdiction on the side of it. And yeah, let's debate the color between onyx and black. Right, that's not going to fly, but that's kind of the thought.
You wouldn't go with that with your defense?
If I were the defense counsel, no, I don't think
I think you're grasping at straws at that point. Ben, I had a question for you, actually. So you're working in like a kind of material sciences sort of job right now, not related to your field. How do you keep up with, because you don't have continuing modules and whatnot. Is it just self-study? Is it just like kind of reviewing?
Self-study, experimentation.
You just got to be real smart.
You experiment with rockets?
Oh, how do I keep up? How do I keep up with the industry I am trained for, not the industry I'm working in?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, early days, a lot of it was actually straight up experimentation. This is like 50s we're talking about. But now it's a lot of, I should read more journals, but it's a lot of just keeping up with news and such because it's such a expanding industry.
So like following SpaceX and those types of things. And like
even more than like SpaceX is the easy one to follow. It's
right,
the small ones. Like, there's this, this group that's trying to get into launch, but they currently have a owner who is affiliated with Ukrainians, and the DOD really doesn't like that. And yeah, so that's
geopolitical really fast.
Huh? And yeah, that was like news within the past 2 weeks. So yeah.
Wow.
Well, I was going to say, no field is apolitical, it seems, nowadays. I mean, I didn't think healthcare with the pandemic was going to be what it is. I mean, it's kind of interesting because working in healthcare, I trained, and this is we're 2 years going on, year 3 now of a pandemic. My training in musculoskeletal medicine, I can't examine your joint over the phone. I can't do an injection. I don't have a long enough needle to inject you from home. I mean, that should be its own episode, is the politicization of our relative fields, or just interesting topics to talk about. We can delve into that more later. But I just wanted to probe your brain and see what you do in your own time to keep up with, what you learned in college, what you learned for your degree, and how that's going to apply to what you eventually want to do. Because I assume you want to do something related to in relation to aerospace engineering.
Short answer is I haven't been as much as I should, and that's when a graduate degree comes in.
I feel that. I feel that in my bones of the especially in med school and training. I think anybody in healthcare or training in healthcare will know. I never feel like I'm reading enough. I never feel like I'm studying enough.
Well, yeah, because you've just gotten done with 10 years of your life of just what are you doing today?
12, but who's counting?
Not me.
I sacrificed my 20s for medicine, and now I have a son, so we'll see what my 30s look like. If it's anything like my knees, it's going to be very loud. But does that happen to anybody else? I was going to say, does anybody else's knees pop when they stand up now, or is that just me?
Nope.
Okay, good. All right.
Welcome to the 30s,
That's
right?
just what your 30th birthday.
What do you think, Pat? Does that sound about right?
It didn't start happening for me until I was in my 40s, to be honest.
Captain Good Knees over here.
Yeah, well, I don't take very good care of myself, but my knees didn't start hurting until I was in my 40s and all of it's starting to hurt, and I'm dying slowly.
You inherited the good knee genes.
Yeah, I guess. But
What were you gonna say?
Politicization of our respective professions and all, and immediately I'm like, wait, you do realize that all the bad lawyers become politicians, right? That's how it happens. Like they can't hack it in the private sector or even in public life for that matter as an attorney, and have aspirations of changing the world and have that thwarted by running for office.
Pat wins that episode.
You know what?
Yeah.
My list is much dumber than that. I think we need to have some more fun with this before we start getting into the serious topics. I wanted to keep this lighthearted, but in the first episode, we're delving into the politicization of our various fields. So
and I'm just crying in the corner. It got serious real fast.
Ramon scares easy. We got to keep this light.
When you're living in a society right now where everybody thinks they know everything,
yeah.
I mean, like, come on. I mean, everybody's knows more than we do about what we do and what's going on.
Listeners, you're all very much smarter than us. I believe it. That might be true. Just depending on the thing we're talking about at the time. Yeah, that's the fun part of my job is I have people come in, and I can't tell you how many people are just like, well, I read on this blog, and I'm like, what?
Seems reputable.
Your Google search isn't the same as my medical degree. It's like those silly cups, which, by the way, my favorite one of those is the IT one, which is or a programming one. There's a programming one. It's like your Google search isn't as good as my Google search.
Correct.
Which is true for medicine, too. I don't necessarily use Google, but I do look up things on the fly because I can't possibly know everything at that moment. I mean, if it's a simple problem and something I see all the time,
you've got a cold.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's more like, you have arthritis, and here's your options. Or, you have bursitis, and here's what probably is going to help the most. And these are your options. That's the thing. I know medicine has this hierarchical, patriarchal sort of people used to be told by their doctor what to do and ordered to, and if they didn't do it, they weren't their doctor anymore, or something like that. Now, with people's access to the internet, to this plethora of information, you're right, Pat, everybody knows everything, and they know what they have when they come in until they don't.
WebMD tells me I have cancer.
And, here's why I think that. The thing is, I take the extra time to tell them why I think is going on. And majority of the time, I think people actually appreciate that. They appreciate, expertise. That's why they came here. And here's how I'm going to fix your pain. That's the nice thing. I treat pain and function, which is what you can always try to get people to do. In primary care, I can't get people to get their blood pressure under control until basically their vision and kidneys start to go, and we're talking dialysis. So my field's great. I love what I do because sports medicine's my passion, but at the same time, my problems are also easy and very tangible and very there and interfering with people's lives. So people want a fix.
Ramon, how many people actually have you explain what the medicine's going to do? It actually take you up on that.
Would you
I
like
always
a
wonder
consultation?
that. I go to the counter. What's that?
You know what? It does happen more than you would think, but less than I would like. So I would say if on a given day, it's probably about maybe 30% of the prescriptions that go out that are new. People want me to talk to them, but part of the law though is I have to offer consultation on every single one. So I'm trying hey, let me go talk to you about this, and they're like, no, I gotta get going later, loser. And that's kind of it. It's okay, fine. I guess I'll just go back to counting by 5.
Just count by 5. Put my pills in the bottle and go back to your online degree.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny because that's an interesting point because most oftentimes my days are spent like talking to people about what their choices are, options are. It's not making erudite legal arguments before a court and filing huge memorandums of law or briefs with the court to persuade them to do. It's usually just trying to persuade my clients to do what's best for them. And I'd wondered how often you actually got to do what your
what I was trained for.
What you do.
That's an excellent question, and I appreciate that. No, and it's most of my day-to-day stuff is usually haggling with people over the price of their medications, trying to get the insurance copay down. Because even if someone's copay is $15 and their insurance knocked off $800 on this brand name medication, it's still trying to convince them to pay $15, and it can be a struggle. But I would say maybe about 5% of my day requires my training, and when I get to use that brain of mine to actually help make a recommendation, someone comes to the window saying, hey, I don't like this drug, make me feel like this, what should I talk to my doctor about? Making a recommendation, maybe something they should bring up with their doc. It's always a good feeling, and sometimes it results in change, and sometimes they're like, yeah, that's fine. I asked my buddy Greg, and Greg said this, and so they go with whatever Greg says.
Greg's a reliable guy. Greg knows what he's talking about.
Exactly.
He sounds confident when he speaks.
His Google search is potent. But yeah, I don't get to use my pharmacy brain as much as I'd like to, and that's probably why most of it is withered away quite a bit.
Oh well, that's the same boat. My primary care brain is withering.
Professional journals are helpful. I subscribe to a thing called Pharmacist Letter. I get little updates, and the CEs are helpful to help keep my brain somewhat active.
Pharmacist Letter, if you would like to sponsor us.
Seriously, I'm tired of paying your subscription every year. Please give this to me for free.
Well, that brings back to Ben. For your field, I know you want to get into aerospace engineering, and you had some prospects coming up. What exactly do you want to do? I want to know more, like, what is the nitty-gritty, bare bones of your field?
How nitty-gritty do you want to get?
Well, okay. The Cliff Notes explain like I'm 5 version.
Explain it to us like we're 4-year-olds.
Me want up thing go to space.
All right, I'll take it another notch.
A little bit, maybe a little bit higher for us.
Wow.
Okay, second grade.
Up goer 5 level.
There you go.
I mean, basically just work on rockets, work on engines, rocket engines, work on satellites.
So it's a very broad sort of area, but the actual application of what you do and what you would do.
The application of what I more specialized with in school, Northrop Grumman has this program called these mission extension vehicles, where people may think about satellites being these big multi-million-dollar ginormous pieces of hardware that are floating out there. These are your communication satellites. They're expensive, they're big, and when they run out of fuel, they're basically done.
Huh.
And so Northrop Grumman has these satellites that they launch that will just go and attach to the back of these dying satellites and start controlling their facing, and it's like an alien. It's like just attaches to it and functions for it.
What is? Can you explain what that company is? I don't.
Northrop Grumman.
Yeah.
Northrop Grumman is one of the big. I mean, they're the ones that make a lot of the fighter jets. They're the ones, but they also have a big space program side.
Like in Tucson, we have Raytheon. Are they like a version of Raytheon? Or Raytheon, it seems almost more like the tech side of things. Like
Raytheon's also a lot of more missiles.
Oh, okay. Well, no.
So, yeah, my specialization was in dynamics and control, and that is astrodynamics. The orbits and that kind of thing to rendezvous or get these two satellites, one of which is not really moving much and one of which is trying to get there next to each other, and then have them literally dock.
So guidance systems, those calculations.
Yeah, that's what I'd really like to do, is any of that stuff.
Well, that's intense. Because like when you look at like the SpaceX launch, like I remember watching that and like replaying the landing of it and just thinking like, holy cow! Like, and that's going to be an episode. I think it probably upcoming very soon. It's just like the technology and respective technologies in our field. And what are the advancements? What are the changes? What are we excited for? And what are we worried about? So that'll probably be coming up in the wing. But I remember watching that and replaying that and just being amazed of like, how in my lifetime are we doing this? And you wanna basically work on that aspect of it.
A little bit, yeah. And even for me, SpaceX started talking about reusing their rockets. I was like, that's crazy. That's
wild.
Absolutely wild. And now they're landed their 5th rocket to be used 10 times.
Whoa.
Yes, they have five different first stages that have been used 10 times.
That's wild.
Yes.
Okay, so I am from the Challenger generation. I have a great deal of skepticism towards this. Obviously, they're privately funded, privately insured. What are they doing differently than what NASA was doing that would make it safe for them to use the same materials over and over again, and in short periods of time. I mean, it seemed like NASA would take 1,000,000 years to put a shuttle up. If the weather wasn't perfect and the orbit wasn't perfect and everything wasn't perfect, it'd get scrubbed for weeks or days or months. And so I'm just like, what's different in the science and in the material?
The long and the short of it is, the space shuttle was unbelievably complex and extremely over-engineered. I say you have to remember, no, people may not know, the space shuttle had a bunch of its requirements given to NASA by the Air Force, because we were in the middle of the Cold War.
Oh, that's right.
It was supposed to possibly be a from-space bomber.
Like a combat, yeah. Oh, God.
Which is why it had to have wings. They've simplified it, and at this point, they just have, for a long time, for instance, SpaceX just launched their, I can't remember if it's second or third batch of astronauts to space. For a long time, NASA's like, new booster, like, that's it, new booster.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, okay, that's fine. And they done the reviews on all of these boosters enough so that NASA will let them use a reused booster. So the specifics I don't know, but basically it's the heat shield tiling that the reason that Columbia failed was crazy complex, and that was honestly most of what had to be refurbished on the shuttle, and these rockets don't have that.
So when you don't gear it for re-entry and bombing Russia, there's a lot more liberty you can take in terms of making advancements without having to, basically not compromise other parts or other working parts. To put it in a very simplified explanation.
And at this point, they've got so much practice with it. They have...
Well, that makes sense.
They have well over 100 landings. They have landed almost every rocket since... Oh, geez, I'm going to get this date wrong. It's been 5 or 6 years.
That being said, I think I'm going to bring this episode to a close. Anybody have any parting words of wisdom or anything that they want to add?
Read the instructions on all of your takeouts. You'll find lots of...
Read the instructions on all food, because I'm pretty sure it tells you on the pizza to remove the cardboard.
I think that's what we
You're supposed
learned today.
You're supposed to remove the cardboard.
RTFM.
Oh, man.
That's my parting words of wisdom.
Know where your water shutoff valve is in your house
See,
right now.
The helpful tips
If you're
from your
listening to
professionals.
this, it could save your Xbox or your PC
And your
or
Fortnite game.
Or your house?
Oh wait, your house too. Yeah, that's probably.
Don't put cardboard in the oven. Read instructions on food. Actually, I feel like the most probably applicable is that. Just don't find your water shut-off valve. That's probably pretty important. Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us today. This has been Overqualified Idiots. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you all, and have a good rest of your week. Sundays is when episodes drop. We'll see you next week.